Hello and welcome to QuadCast. To celebrate International Women's Day, we invited a panel of women to the Alpha Quad office to have a discussion about our individual experiences as women in business. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Sarah, I'm a director here at Alpha Quad.
And I'm Kirsty, I'm a senior account manager here at Alpha Quad.
I'm Alice, I'm a freelance designer.
I'm Lucy and I'm the CEO and founder of the PS Events Group.
I'm Rebecca, marketing director and co-founder of Berrykin Marketing Co.
I'm Emily, senior account manager here at Alpha Quad.
I'm Ruth, I work for the PS Events Group as their venue relations manager and I also own the Presenting Hub.
Excellent, so we've got a panel of women here today to celebrate International Women's Day on Saturday, and we just wanted to have a chat about what life is like in general in the working environment for women, and especially in our marketing industry. So does anyone want to get us started?
I'm glad I don't live in the dark ages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think even in the last 10 years, it's becoming much more the norm that women should have a place and a voice in all areas of business. Certainly in our sector, I think where creativity is involved, it's really, really welcomed. I think there's possibly still a little bit of a divide of expectation that the creative sits with the women and the business decisions sit with the men, and that's the biggest load of bleep.
Yeah, we were just saying before we started recording that we've had experience of that, luckily in the past now, but where we've been the ones working on the account, but we've had to take a token man along to meetings to give us the gravitas that they're expecting. But actually, when it comes to what's been happening, how things are performing, what's the progress with the project, it's the people that work on the account that need to be at those meetings. And it shouldn't actually matter if that's a man or a woman. It just whoever's actually been doing it and knows about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going on from your point, there's a lot of women, like you say, in business, but in the senior roles, it's still very much lacking. There's that disparity still there. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but I think men are twice as likely to be CMOs, chief marketing officers, over women, and it's just so wrong. You just think in 2025, why is that sort of still the case? So there's absolutely, I think, more that needs to be done in that space and that senior level, and I think it's sort of building women up to feel like they can go for them roles and that they have a place in the boardroom and they shouldn't feel held back because of the position title or juggling other commitments outside of work.
And the more women that do get in those senior roles, the easier, Sarah, your experience will be when you go into those meetings. Yeah. Right? Because at the moment, if it's still lots of men in those senior roles and you're going to those meetings, that's why we feel like we need to bring a man. Whereas the more women that get into them, hopefully they'll become more advocates for promoting women as well.
And do you think that going into those environments, if you're there and you're the minority, there might be just perhaps one or two women and maybe 10 men, it's having that opportunity to really find your confidence and to really go in there and not actually feel that you're on a back footer to start with, because we shouldn't. Everybody's there on equal merit, and that you're actually having that confidence. I think there's a lot of us that are maybe doing work on that, to go out and to feel that actually you've got the skills, you've got all of the capability, but we're still very aware of those environments, which I think everybody's very aware of and trying to change. But it's almost having that, not to actually go in there and I hate the fake it till you make it. I don't like that phrase, because that to me makes me think that you haven't got the skills that you're faking it. You have got that confidence, you have got the ability, but to actually go in with almost super confidence to be able to actually sit at the table and go, I'm here on equal merit.
I think my struggle is because I'm freelance and I'm on my own, I don't have that. I can bring somebody else in, so I've got to go in there and I've got to be really ballsy, like straight from and then people can perceive it as being a bit aggressive, but it's not. But that because I'm a woman, and then being ballsy is being aggressive. It's not. I'm just in there, and there can be often times where I meet a new client and it'll be 5 men in a video call, and straight off you can either feel on the back foot and be like, right, okay, or I can just push on, and I'd rather they said that I was quite forward than sat back.
But if it was a man that they were talking to, then they'd probably be perceived in a different way, wouldn't they?
It would just be confidence then, rather than push and saying, or if it comes to like dev work's a really good example. So if they say, like you said, if this creative falls with the women, often the dev they think falls with the men, and then if I say, well, I'll do that, it's a bit, Okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah. And I think, but that is one of those male perceived kind of roles, so that's like a big barrier, I think.
But don't you think it's interesting that we're automatically talking about women with men in senior positions? I think some of my trickier clients are when the other senior people are women. Because then you've got a completely different dynamic of, am I threatened by you? Or is it, I think it brings in a whole different energy and a whole different dynamic that fundamentally, not that I'm going to wrap up this podcast so early on, but fundamentally it would come down to owning it as the individual and be seen as your skill set, not for the gender that you are.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's owning and being proud and just having confidence that you are there and you are the embodiment of the job of what you deliver rather than everything else. But obviously, as I know we're going to discuss, as women and men, that perceived expectation of society and on ourselves. I think speaking to lots of other people in any position, it's the expectation we have of ourselves within situations that is the curveball rather than necessarily the situation that we're in.
And do you think that it's obviously women in, I know a lot of you were talking just before we started about maternity and children and spinning plates. There's obviously a heck of a lot of plates to spin. How do you kind of feel that that's brought into your day-to-day life when you've got children or you've got those commitments, and then you're moving up in terms of your position, CEO or founder, that you've got family life to juggle, you've got business life to juggle? Do you think that plays into how you're perceived in industries? Or
definitely. Yeah, I've experienced it myself. So I actually went through maternity and pregnancy discrimination at a company. So I went off and had my first baby. So I was the head of department, running it really well with the team underneath me, and got pregnant, went off to have a baby, and my maternity cover came in a man. And when I came back, long story short, they were like, right, he's going to stay and you're going to report into him. And he'd been given a different, more senior job title than me. He was paid more than me, which I found out, and I was like, this is absolutely not fair at all. Comments were made like, oh, we thought you were going to come back part-time, or we thought you were going to come back pregnant, so we kept him on. And you just think, wow. And I felt really empowered to think, well, I'm going to take this further, and like, I'm not going to just sit back. But I had so many, even female friends and colleagues say to me, oh, well, would you not just go back and it'll be fine, and if you do want another baby, you don't want to rock the boat, do you? And I think, wow, that was friends and family just looking out for me, but thinking, oh, to keep quiet. And I think, well, if we all did that, then I would have reported into him, and that would have stunted me. Then I would have stayed as the manager. I wouldn't have got that next rung up because he would have been there, and unless he would have moved on, that would have been it. So yeah, I did, and sort of took it all the way. But I was very fortunate that I had the support of family to be able to do that. And I'm sure there's lots of women who just think, well, I can't, and I'm just going to keep quiet, and that's me done then. And it was a massive confidence knock, the embarrassment of having to come back on kick days and people go, who's Joe Bloggs, and having to sort of say, oh, I'm not really sure, and oh, is he your new manager? And you think, like, what has happened? I went off. If I'd have gone off poorly, or I'd broken a leg or had a serious operation, was off for a period of time, would they have done the same thing? It was just this sort of expectation and vision now that, oh, she won't want a career now. She's reached a peak and she'll be done now because she's had a baby. And I just think it's so wrong. So I'm getting my soapbox a bit there, but because it's so personal. And yeah, when I started digging and speaking to other women, there was loads who said, oh, the exact same thing happened to me. And you think, gosh, I didn't realise it was so common, but you almost feel embarrassed to speak about it. And I think it shouldn't be that way. If it was the other way around, I wonder how different it would be if that was happening to men. I'm sure there'd be a lot more voices and outcry of it. I mean, we are definitely getting a lot better. But yeah, I think it massively plays a part in women's career.
And the assumption as well that you're going to have another baby, that they shouldn't assume things like that, and it's not really anyone's business. I mean, I'm happy to share sort of my experience, which has been positive, but I have endometriosis, which is something that 1 in 10 women have. It's a very painful disease, and sometimes, you have flare-ups, and I've been in hospital from it before. But that caused infertility with me. And the worst thing in the world when you're going through that is someone saying, when are you having a baby? And I was fortunate, I went through IVF and I had Noah, who you've all met, and he's wonderful. But that's it's difficult, because why should people assume that every woman is going to have a baby? When are you having the next one? I actually can't. I'm totally infertile now. I've got a less than 1% chance of having another child, and that would be through IVF. So that's, it's difficult, people making those assumptions. But then on the other side, with having endometriosis, it's actually Endo Action Month this month, and they do a massive scheme on endo in the workplace and having endo-friendly workplaces. And actually, I find that working here, everyone is so understanding, men included, about what I go through, and they understand that sometimes I will need to work from home because I can't drive, I'm in so much pain, or, I just need to be able to sit on the sofa and work, or have a couple of hours and then go back to work again later from home. And people are very understanding of that, and I think that is just fantastic. And it's such a positive.
Open about it and your experiences with it as well.
Yeah,
it helps us understand.
Yeah, and I think some of you see me on the floor in pain in here as well, and you've got to go home, Kirsty. So it's, that's been a really positive thing for me. And the last place that I worked at as well, they really did value me like I'm valued here. They paid for me to go private to have my operation, which was just great, because I got in a week after, maybe something like that, had my operation, had 2 weeks off, and then I was back in less pain and, more productive, feeling better. And it was just so good to have that understanding. I think that's really important.
And also then having conversations like this, podcasts, or kind of an open forum like this for us to talk, for everyone to listen to, men, women alike. I think we are getting so much better at talking about all of these different things, which actually hopefully contributes to the fact that, as we said at the start, you don't want to walk into any room, workplace, environment, socially, business, and really notice who anybody is, male, female, or we want to all just get in and get the job done. Exactly. And I think that is getting better. Yeah. And like you said, sometimes you might choose to have, you choose to have your children, you might choose to have time off, you might be fortunate to have that space. I know, Lucy, you didn't take time off because you obviously had, the business is yours, so you couldn't do that, and that's a different juggle.
And interestingly, I think, again, I'm horrified if anyone told me, but I remember I'd given birth 2 hours before and I was sending emails.
Oh my goodness.
But because now I can look back reflectively and think, I didn't want people to think that having a child was a weakness.
Yeah.
And it would affect my ability to be perceived as I was by our clients or our suppliers or anything. It's like, no, I've got this. It's it won't change anything. It won't change anything. And I think, when we touched on it briefly before we started recording, you can have it all, and I really don't think you can. There has to be a point, something has to give. I'm incredibly fortunate. I'm so lucky. I've got the most amazing husband who, without him, I wouldn't be able to have. But I am not 100% as mum, and I'm not 100% for work. And that is something that still 15 years in of owning the business, 12 years into motherhood, I still have to, I struggle with, because I am a perfectionist. I want to be brilliant at both. And actually, who suffers in all of this? Me. Because I don't get the pleasure of my children when I want to. If we're on holiday, I'm taking the work calls. I don't get a kick out of making the business successful as I know it could, because I have got to be a mum. And it just never stops. So when actually, is there a point you go, oh, I'm going to do this for me, because you're either in work mode or in mum mode, and you don't have that. It's awful that it would be seen as a privilege to have some time for yourself. Like, I went to a spa day the other day.
Wonderful.
And I felt guilty.
The whole time.
But it's so important, isn't it, to have that time
God,
for
well,
yourself.
what day I need to sort out the costume, and then haven't got email and then and then I've got, so one of our children's autistic, and then I really, this was lovely. Oh my God, right, okay. So about 3 years ago, we were working on the Qatar World Cup, and it involved me popping over to Qatar a couple of times, and it was Freddie, our autistic son, was having a really tricky time. We had put everything in place. My mum and dad lived around the corner. My husband was at home with him all the time. He never went to outside of school. He never had anybody other than my mum and dad or him. And the head teacher, female head teacher, called me in and sat me down when he was having a really tricky time, and she said, "You do know you are his mother. You really should be there for him."
Oh my goodness.
Like, you do know that his dad is there. He has the most... Would you be saying this to my husband if he was the one who was going off? And that, even now, I'm stopping myself from crying. The guilt from another woman in a senior position, and then I am the reason that my child's struggling at school because I'm choosing to work. And like, I am doing everything, and you know what? I work bloody hard, and now we've ripped him out of that school and we're paying for him to go for the education that he needs that's right for him, because I am now working my butt off to make his life better. And yet I was, that's
terrible.
Oh, I could talk for hours on that.
Whatever happened to women supporting women?
It's that age you're saying, if you need to parent like you don't work, and work like you're not a parent.
Completely, and it's just not doing
and
it.
it's not gone.
No,
at all.
that really hasn't.
We're fortunate here that we all work hours that allow us to pick up the children sometimes, but we've all said that it's really challenging because before you have children, if you're in the middle of a project, you can stay over half an hour and it doesn't matter. But when you've got that hard deadline at the end of the day that your children are waiting to be picked up from school, so you have to stop. And that's kind of where the juggle comes. And then you kind of, like you say, you can't give everything to anywhere.
And then when the phone goes and they're ill. I'm just like, we've got a member of staff at the moment who's a single dad. And he's having some really, really tricky times at the moment. And it's really interesting how it's because he's a single dad compared to, looking for childcare for his child opposed to the rights for the mother. And so it's baffling that actually maybe it isn't just a male and female thing. It is just that work-life juggle when you've got the responsibility of any responsibilities. It's not just children, it's sick parents, or it's you're a carer, or anything that takes you away. And it's almost like the emotional element of your life doesn't necessarily sit in the balance of work.
I often think, is it like society that makes us feel the guilt, or obviously there's some element internally, but when I ask my husband when he's been out to work, and I'll say I really miss the kids today, and I'll ask him, and he says obviously he does, but when I describe it, he says it's not the same sort of thought process. And I often think, is it because we're obviously wired differently with it, or is it sort of society and outside influence that puts that pressure that we should be feeling like it's on us, the first phone call from the school or nursery should be us rather than dad. I just, or whether it's just an individual thing. I always find that really interesting, because that mum guilt, I talk a lot about it with my friends, and whatever you're doing, it just doesn't feel like you're doing enough, and the guilt is there all the time.
I think there is society pressure still, because we were talking, Becca, when we met the other day, weren't we, that you went out one night after you'd had the baby and everyone's like, oh, who's got the baby? But if your husband had to go out for work, nobody would go, oh, who's got the baby if you're here in an evening?
I was dad babysitting. No.
Parenting.
And it's even down to things like, if you are having a tricky time with, if it is female issues, so with other men around, explaining, this is my time of the month. I am, or your 2 or 3 weeks of the month, or whatever it would take. It's like, this is a real part of life. Let's just remember that you were born from women.
Yeah.
And life, we're not to get on the whole cycle, but without us the world would not exist. but no, and then I'm of an age now where we're talking menopause, and that support in the office, because Ruth and I talk frequently. We've got a lot of the offices significantly younger than us, and we're like, the brain fog is real, and you're on the middle of a call and you don't know someone's name, and that is a thing. It literally is a thing. And you go, I've actually started talking about it. Go, do you know what? Sorry, my patch probably is falling a bit loose with me at the moment, and just owning it. Just actually owning it. This is the situation I'm in. I'm bloody brilliant at my job, and I've got this ticky thing going on at the moment. Bear with me, and you'll get me back in a second.
Yes.
I went to a networking event the other week, and there was a lady there, and literally everyone's going around, hi, I'm Ruth, I'm so-and-so, whatever, I'm so, and she literally introduced, I'll call her Jane, she literally introduced herself, went, hi, I'm Jane, and I'm perimenopausal. I went, fabulous, I won't remember any of your names, it's lovely to meet you all, but just so you know, if I say something silly, I'm like, it's because of that, and I went, bless her, and she was the kind of the life and soul of the whole event, and everybody then started to talk about different things. But it's that thing, isn't it? You go into meetings or you go out and about, and it's a nightmare at the moment. I'm 50 this year, and navigating all of this, again, we're talking about it, which is brilliant, but it's almost like you feel you really again have to try that bit harder, try to overcompensate, because you go into a room, your brain fog happens, or XYZ, you start having a bit of a sweaty moment or whatever, and you feel incompetent, your confidence, and I'm finding a lot of people that I do.
You feel like your body's kind of letting you down.
Because you've got it all there, and you're at an age where you've built or you're still building your business, or you're navigating through life, and you're trying to get where you need to be. But then suddenly you've got all of this on top of you that's holding you back, or taking away your confidence. And I think sort of 40, 50, I'm definitely finding anyway. Motivation, you're having to dig a bit deep for the motivation, you're having to dig even harder to go into meetings again, to sit there and say I'm an expert at this, or I know what I'm doing. But like you said, you get the brain fog, and you suddenly something that you've gone on about forever just completely disappears, and it's another challenge that we're all as women at this particular age trying to get through. But again, talking about it is brilliant. But it's so difficult when you've got all the skills in your bag and they're gone.
Yeah.
But are we going to get to a point where we're talking about it so much that it starts to backfire?
And it becomes a crutch.
Because then it becomes, because, I would consider that woman who's nearly 50, but so if you were a male employee, I'm not making this, could it be a case to go, oh no, she's going to be menopausal, because it is talked about so much. Is this actually going to end up being
like a discrimination?
Yeah.
And even again, females that are hiring, we're living it. We know what it is. So if you've got the choice again between different ages, is that going to make a difference? But but that could go through a whole span of life, couldn't it? Like you said, if you're kind of childbearing or menopause. I mean, I've not had children, so I'm kind of slightly different. I've got cats that I have to look after them. They're enough, trust me. But there's all those different stages that you almost want to go male, female, menopause, XYZ. You just want none of it to matter. I know it does. But you want it all just to not even be.
Yeah, everyone of every age has got something. Like every span of life has got something that it should just not matter.
No.
Or you have to, whether it's happening or not, you've just got to completely bypass it.
But that's finding your confidence, isn't it? I think for every woman as an individual, it's keeping that confidence. It's reminding yourself of what you can give it, and not comparing. I've always said comparison is death. As soon as you, in any situation, as soon as you start comparing yourself, your abilities to somebody else, it's tickets. It's literally just kind of looking at yourself and reminding yourself what you have got to give to other people, to industry, to social environments. But that's one thing that I think we all, and it might be that we all battle with, even though you've got a whole shopping list of skills you could talk to somebody about, and they'd be like, oh my goodness, it's so hard to remind yourself of what you've actually got to bring to the table all the time.
I remember I used to just make, I think my kids are quite young, and I remember like when I first had kids, I was having to like make those excuses like, oh sorry, my kid's ill, or you know, I need to go and do this. And then I kind of thought, I'm just going to have to own this now and appreciate the fact that I'm working on my own, and I'm doing this all on my own, and I'm still mothering kids, and they're still alive. Like this is miraculous, right?
Yes.
Right? And I'm still earning some money. I don't even know how this is possible. This is incredible, and I'm still doing that, and I need to own it. And I was always like, oh sorry, you know, I need to go to an appointment with this. Actually, no, I've got an appointment this morning, you know, and own the fact that I'm doing that and I'm doing that. And if I need to work tonight, that's my prerogative to do.
Yeah.
And then work that out. And it is horrible because you do have to juggle everything. And like you said, I kind of agree that you can't have everything. Something has to give. But as and when, that's my freedom to do. So if I need to say, I can't work tonight because I've got to make a World Book Day costume, God help us all, that's for us to do. And then I can say, do you know what, I still worked this week, and I made the World Book Day costume, and I went out and I bought this, and I did this, and I paid for this, and everything, and bossing it, really. Do you know what I mean? And they have to have a little reminder. It's not all the time, very rarely. You have that reminder, but that's been a real struggle for me. It's like kind of a bit of self-validation of like, I'm constantly thinking like I'm spilling all these plates and something's going to drop, and it's like, or it's like having loads of fires and having to give them all a little bit of attention just to keep going. Do you know what I mean? And then thinking, stopping at the end of the week and thinking, oh, got through it again. Like that's pretty good effort.
And doing it without apologising, as you were kind of saying then, sorry, I can't do this meeting because we don't need to apologise.
Don't need to justify it.
No, not at all. Those kids literally require me to stay alive.
Yeah.
And I will make sure that they do. And they need to go to things, they need to attend things, they need to go to clubs, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be, you know, at the detriment to work, but they're like a massive part of my character and my development as a person, and I want to nurture that, and I want to nurture work, and there has to be a little give and take with both. But and I'm saying this, and then there are loads of weeks where I probably don't do either. Probably.
They're still alive, and so are you.
Yeah, right.
That's that's your judgment of yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
On the outside, you know, looking in, you're killing it.
And there are some weeks, and I say like, oh, I worked really hard this week, and then people might say, but you've worked between 9 and 3 because you need to drop your kids off, and I think, but I feel like I've done, but I also work bloody hard in those 6 hours. And is it a self-justification to say, oh, well, I need to do a full day's work in those hours? It's not necessarily. It's because you want to strive to be the best for everything, right? And I don't know if anyone else, but working with kids around it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it for me.
And then I'd love to say I've got a really brilliant philosophical quote for this. But who's seen the Barbie movie? And there's that, you know, you can't be too thin, you can't be and there's a whole of that then still is in the equation. You're going to a meeting, maybe it is a massive boardroom and there's 20 men in there. What am I going to wear so I don't look that I am, you know, powering, but I don't want to be perceived as this? And it's that, you know, and do you mention this? And it's, and also, again, in another group of women. And I think... But then that's life in all areas. But there is this whole, again, the point that you were making about the society. Is it society's expectation? And then I think there is that. And then don't even get me started on the judgments of social media and things. And it's
it's a little bit. Then it's like, we're not using the phrase men are a problem, but we're all saying like the men in the senior roles. But then it's also like a real big. A women's thing as well. We all need to advocate each other, and that's probably not there yet either. Do you know what I mean? And that's like, because if we're just all looking out for each other, and it's not just saying you can't. It's not just you have to be pro women or pro men. That's not a thing. It should not be a thing. Pro everyone.
Good.
People who do the job well and are the best for the job. They, in my opinion, they should be the ones that are doing the job, regardless of anything. A really good example I have is one of my very best friends. She runs like a security company, and when she started in that field, you can imagine, male dominated. Now she's like got her own company, and she's just like such an amazing person. And everyone, when they talk to her, like on emails or whatever, they think that they're going to meet her and she's going to be this kind of person. She's about 3 foot tall. She is sensational and just like the most bubbly person ever. And she's just like, I don't see why it matters. Yeah. I'm a woman. She's like got the business mentality. She knows exactly how to run that business, and you know what? She knows how to keep everyone else in check as well. Yeah, which I absolutely love. And I just look at her and I just think, fair play to you, really, because we're always worried about how we're going to be perceived and everything, and she doesn't care.
That's a lot of it, isn't it? It's not. Sometimes we talk about having that fear of failing or trying something or going something, and it's not actually necessarily that fear of failing, it's the fear of being judged. But again, we can't control anybody's judgment, so actually what we need to do, everybody needs to just focus on themselves, doing the best job that they can, because regardless of what you do, if you're going to a business meeting, if you're speaking, you cannot change anybody's perception in that room, and it's human nature. You watch the television, there's some people you watch and I can't stand them, and they've done nothing to you, don't know them, but human nature, you will gravitate towards some people and you won't. But that's never going to be your job. If you're in a higher position in business, you can't control how you're going to be received. As long as you're doing the best job that you can, there'll be some people there that will want to work with you, and they're the people you should take on your journey anyway, and there'll be people that won't, and there's nothing you can do about that, nothing you can change about that. But it is having that confidence in your own ability when you're standing there to hand that over, and that fear of judgment, I think, in business, in life, is huge. And
it's
I think completely, and that's men, women, whatever. But I think do we as women sort of take a bit of that on board a little bit more? I don't know. I think
that's changed as you've got older? So like since having kids, I have now got. So it used to be I wanted everyone to like me at all times,
which I think is human nature.
Then you get older, and then think that becomes like slightly less. It's still like you've still got imposter syndrome and everything. I don't know if everyone suffers from that. I certainly do. And then it's like knowing that your skills are what they are. But it's that I get a little bit older, and I think if they don't like me, then you can't like everyone. And it's not just like it's fine. It's just like you can't go around pleasing everybody because you've got enough to juggle in your own life. I can't be worried about what everyone else thinks about me, or else I wouldn't sleep.
I seen a quote that said, what other people think about you is none of your business. And it's true, isn't it? Because you just think, well, that's their opinion, you're not going to change.
How many opinions of people do you have that you don't, it doesn't affect anything? Like you said, there's people that it's just not your cup of tea. And that's absolutely fine. No one needs to be everyone's cup of tea. Right. But then you need to take that out of the equation, right? And I think that then we're more sensitive to that. I don't know, I don't want to be in that saying women are more emotional, whether we are or not, a scientific fact or whatever. But is it that we're all like, if we gone into a meeting and then what we're perceiving somebody's attitude towards us, maybe it's not that at all. Maybe they just don't care.
I definitely think the older I get, the better I'm getting at not giving a squirrel about what anybody thinks.
I agree. In the bleep.
The bleep. With the squirrel. Did you notice that? I chose my word quite well. But it is still hard to do. But then I go, I'm 50. However many years, let's say if it's not tomorrow, I'll be dead. No one will give a squirrel. I'll go there again. A bleep. No one will care about my life on this planet. So as long as I'm not doing anything to hurt anybody or going out of my way to be venomous or horrible, why shouldn't I just go for what I want to do? Why shouldn't I just say what I want to say? Because I'm not a horrible person. It's never going to be from a horrible place. As you said, if it's not received brilliantly by somebody, that's fine, they're not my person. So we're only here for such a short time. It's having that confidence to really say and do what you want to do, because you'll find your tribe, and you'll win in that area. And the only regrets you're ever going to have when you're on your deathbed is, I should have done that, I should have said that. So why not give it a try and see what happens? It doesn't. It's one of those, but easy to say and harder to put into practice.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting more confident though as I get older, having so much more faith in myself and my abilities, and just that self-belief, isn't it? And it's really important.
And that projects outwards, right? Yeah. So it's like if you're confident and you're sitting there and you project confidence, then people will feed off that. Yeah. Whereas it's like, I always used to be like a yes person all the time, just saying yes, especially like when, if you're running your own business or whatever and you want the business to start off with, you just say yes to everything, and then it's really hard to get out of that. And then it's like the most powerful thing I ever learned to say was just no. And to protect, like when you're saying about it's got to be something for yourself, right? And there has to be, I'm not saying no to this because I've got too much other work on or my kids need something. It's like I'm burnt out, man. I need like a weekend of not working. I want to do nothing. I want to sit on my ass and do nothing. I'm not going to go out not meditating or bettering myself. Sometimes I just want to do nothing and watch Tiger King.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you should be able to just say no without a reason. I think we have a real problem saying, no, I can't do that because I've got this stuff. And you fill in the backstory. No is fine. No.
If you don't like doing something, then you just say no. I do it with my friends all the time. I just reply one word, they say no. And then they just say, it's just not what I want to do, thanks for the offer.
Great. Has anyone got any words of wisdom before we wrap up?
I think I've been really lucky to like actually work in really supportive companies with male seniors above me. So I think in terms of discrimination, it's not been that heavy on my part. It's very much an internal battle of juggling everything and being seen to be one thing whilst actually being something else. But I would say like there are so many companies out there that like really push for women as well, and I don't want it to be seen like we're kind of like this is not how it is working. But
certainly I've been here for 18 years nearly, so I've not got much kind of experience elsewhere, but it's been sort of a positive experience here, and just how I've been supported through that time as well, and obviously during that time I've had kind of male directors above at the top of the company. So coming here and sort of working as a sort of 20-something, no family, then going off on maternity leave. I was the first person in the company to go off on maternity leave, so sort of set the precedent then. So, John had never kind of like experienced that before, because I then turned around and said, I'd like to come back part-time. That's just what worked for us as a family at the time. I then had another child, came back and increased. I was nearly full-time after that child, then I went and had a third child, and I've come back. I'm still part-time now, but I believe in my kind of abilities to do the job, and I am the best person to be a senior account manager for the accounts that I run, And just because I work part-time, it doesn't kind of negate my experience and, my knowledge of the job, basically. So I've had a positive experience. I've not kind of been held back externally, but internally, that kind of like just growing that self-belief. Like I've been my own worst enemy.
So where does that come from though? Do you know what I mean? So if nobody on the outside is saying to you, why haven't you done that? Is that a society thing?
I think it is, and sort of like, my parents had like quite traditional roles. My mum kind of didn't, she didn't work when me and my brother were growing up because my dad travelled a lot, so she had to be there to do this, that and the other. So I think it is society in my experience as a child. So
I think of all the people sat around this table shows that being a woman, it does matter, obviously, but it shouldn't affect anything. Everyone here is in like pretty senior roles and juggling everything. Whether it doesn't need to be motherhood, it doesn't need to be anything. It's just everything that goes on in life, and whether it's like how you're perceived as a woman or whatever, this is obviously like proof that it can be done. I feel like everyone's really positive about it, so
I think having these conversations is so important, and like networking and, like you say, finding your tribe, I think is like really, really key. And when you have them wobbles, having sort of them friends, close friends, colleagues, so you can just sort of soundboard off and say, I'm feeling a bit like this, or what would you suggest? I think you sort of get that buzz and that kind of I am really bloody brilliant at what I do, and I'm not gonna hold myself back.
It just says that to you, and just says like, look what you've achieved, because you don't see that, and you're very like self-critical of not you, just you. I'm nearly 5 minutes. But I find it super difficult because I'm obviously on my own all the time, right? And then I have like a 5 and a 2-year-old to talk to, and while sometimes they talk a lot of sense, they talk a lot of rubbish. But so I find like things like this and being able to connect with other people like really important to me, especially as I wonder if I've lost all social capacity with myself. I just talk to myself all the time. But
and I think just having just looking out for other people as well, and knowing that everybody's going through their own kind of experiences and just being kind, isn't it? And
absolutely.
That's so key. I still think that's real missing.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it's like people quite cutthroat, very quick to like highlight other people's failures and that, and we don't do enough of saying other people are great. And I don't. I'm sure, because we're all in our own little bubbles. So I always say it's like we all just live and we're all, sound horrible, but I'm me and my bubble. That's a priority for me, and nobody else is. And then, but you need to step out of that and say to other people, like, you're doing a great job as well. And I think, like, we could all be better at that.
Yeah, I think it's a very British thing as well, isn't it? Like we don't celebrate the wins enough. You look to America sometimes like, you go, and it's why not? But here it's probably seen as a little bit more bolshy, or you hear someone sort of saying it like, all right, calm down. But it's not. Why shouldn't you? If you've done something great, go out.
Blowing your own trumpet.
Blow your trumpet, wave a flag. Because you've worked hard. If you've got those wins, you've worked bloody hard for it.
Yeah.
So absolutely go out and celebrate. And that's everybody.
So just to wrap up today's episode, we could have carried on talking for hours, but you would have probably got bored listening to us. Everybody's got such varying experiences. It's very clear to see. Some positive, some not so positive. So, I think the key thing is to really kind of keep supporting women. We need everybody to support each other for everything to sort of run smoothly. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Ruth, Rebecca, Lucy and Alice for joining, Kirsty, Sarah and I. Thoroughly enjoyed having a chat with you guys, and we look forward to catching up soon.